The last couple weeks, we've talked North Carolina's 2023 basketball commits, Simeon, Wilcher, and Gigi Jackson. But today, Coach Pac Kilby and I, we're going to talk about the guy that they both are recruiting and they want to come to Carolina. All of that coming up on today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels.
You are Locked on Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. Welcome into the Locked on Tar Heels podcast. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, beat writer for Sports Illustrated's All Tar Heels website, and I want to thank you for making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. Please remember that we are free and available anywhere you get podcasts, so make sure to go and subscribe right now. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, leave us a great comment as we talk today. Great stuff coming out. A couple things out of the gate, though, before we get in. We had yet another school shooting on Tuesday. Folks, this has to stop. This has to end. I don't know what has to happen in our country, but kudos to Warriors head coach Steve Kerr, who bangs this drum over and over and over again. If you didn't see what he said in his press conference on Tuesday, you need to go watch that, calling senators to task. This shooting that happened on Tuesday was at an elementary school, and here I am sending my son off to his last week of kindergarten, hoping that he will come home later today. America, we have to do something. This has to change. I don't know what it is, but okay, sorry, we got to start there. I know that's painful and rough, but just something that we as a country need to take care of. Now, on to different things. Folks, Pac and I have heard you loud and clear. No more Carolina Coach K. That's over. That's done. It's over. You know, Pac, I thought, hey, maybe this could be a way that we redeem the name Coach K, but clearly it was causing all sorts of trauma for people. And so, you know, we got to be done with that, right? It's over.
Yeah. It's understandable. I understand it. There's nothing I can do about having a last name that starts with K, but I do understand all the heartache that it causes Tar Heels fans. Yes. So, yeah, we're putting it behind us.
Yes, that is dead and buried and laid to rest, just like the real Coach K's career after Carolina ended it twice this year. All right, you go. So, no more. And so, Pac, if I ever accidentally slip into calling you the Carolina Coach K, just say, call me out, stop it, end that, don't make that part of your thing. So there we go. Also, while we're talking about Coach Kilby, congratulations, you have just landed a new job. Tell us about it.
Yeah, man. So I just took a job as the assistant girls basketball coach at Carl Albert High School, which is awesome. You know, for those that aren't familiar with Oklahoma athletics, Carl Albert's it's the standard. And so really, really excited about it. Working with a lot of great people, a lot of good coaches, great opportunity to learn and grow. And so ready to get started and ready for that next chapter.
Man, that's awesome. Congratulations to you. So happy, very well deserved. And I know those ladies are in for a treat with their new basketball coach. That's going to be
Appreciate
wonderful.
that.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And so, folks, as I said, out of the cold open, we 2 weeks ago talked about Simeon Wilcher. Last week we talked about Gigi Jackson. And now, today, we're going to talk about the guy that they both want. In fact, Gigi recently said this, and so let Gigi Jackson have the opening word today. He said, we're trying to reach out to a couple guys, but the biggest one is Matas Buzelis. He is the only one I am even looking at right now. He and I are constantly in communication. He just FaceTimed me the other night, and we just chopped it up. So, Pac, this is our guy. I know you and I are both like geeked out over watching his highlights and studying his film. And so let's just dive into this guy that Gigi wants, that Simeon wants to bring along and just be this big trio. What are you seeing with Matas Buzelis?
Man, when you see Matas, you just see rare. He's just rare. There's not really anything like him. And so, you know, when you hear that Gigi's just chopping it up with him, it makes you wonder what's he saying, because it's like there's no way you put those two together. You mix them in with Simeon, Trimble, RJ, dude. There's no stopping that. Like it's just a wrecking crew. So I
Yeah.
know that. I mean, Carolina Nation. Like if y'all haven't checked this kid out, you need to, because he's special. He's special.
My word. And so there's going to be a lot. Why is he special? We're going to talk a lot about all of that right here. But Pac, if you would, just give me a little bit of the rundown, like who he is, where he's from, all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So Matas 6'10", 175. Now keep in mind this is a
Paper
6'10"
thin.
that plays, yeah, very, very skinny, but he plays like a guard, man. This is a 6'10" point forward, if you will. He's a guard, wing, forward. He's a little bit of everything. And so he brings that to the table. He's coming from Wolfboro, New Hampshire. He plays at Brewster Academy, which, if you're not familiar with Brewster Academy, that's like, it's one of the best premier high schools in all the country for high school boys basketball. And so we know that he's getting top competition and top coaching there. He's been playing with Mac Irvin AAU, which is a good team, but for this circuit, he's playing with Expressions Elite, which I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that just a few months ago, Matas was ranked 43rd in the nation in like the Rivals recruiting rankings. Now he's ranked anywhere between 4th and 11th, and so what comes with that is more exposure and getting with some of those better AAU teams and traveling the circuit. So he's going to be there. And, like we just mentioned, the rankings, ESPN's got him at 11th, which I kind of look at.
And you got to think he's going to jump up, right?
Got to. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And some of the other ones have already adjusted, like Rivals has him at 6th, 247 Composite has him at 6th, and then just the regular 247 ranking has him at 4th. When I look at him, and this is just my own opinion, but I see him as a top 5 player in the class because of all the things that he can do and offer. And here's what's cool about him. There's so much room for growth. There's so much room for growth, man. Like there's tons of potential there on top of him already being a top 5 player.
Man, that's so crazy. And like I read that he had said, or actually I watched an interview where he talked about he had this growth spurt in 8th grade. So by his freshman year, he was already 6'5". I mean, it's just... And so I was just kind of looking up the background because I was like, Matas Buzelis. Like, I know he's born in the States, but that heritage has to be different, certainly. And so what's cool is he is of Lithuanian descent. Both his parents are from Lithuania, where they were both professional basketball players. And apparently they speak, like he is fluent in Lithuanian. They speak Lithuanian at home. And so just cool, like culturally, that's super neat that he's got all that bilingual capability.
Yeah, absolutely. It's awesome.
Man. Well, and so some other things, obviously, as we look at the rundown of Matas here, he hasn't committed to Carolina. And there is, as you would imagine, of somebody with this skill set, everybody who's anybody wants him. So we're talking Duke, Kentucky, Florida State, Wake Forest, Arizona, Illinois, Kansas, Michigan State, Syracuse, UCLA, I mean, everybody. And, of course, the Tar Heels. And I love it. Seems like this is going to be, to me, I mean, when you get those blue bloods, this is Duke and Carolina. This is Shire and Hubert Davis going at it. And I just love that even in this new coaching era for both schools, like we're going to keep getting these great recruiting battles. That's awesome.
Yes, it is. And Matas is the classic case of a blue blood recruitment. Like there's no other way around it. If you're not a blue blood, you might as well just get out of it now because you're wasting your time and your resources. It's Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Michigan State. I don't really see anybody else getting in on that.
No. And so obviously we don't know specifics of his commitment timeline, although I did read one space where he'd like to commit maybe around Peach Jam, which would be mid to late July. So we got about maybe 2 months to put in that work. So GG, Simeon, keep going. Hey, Carolina family out here, put in some words to our guy and get him to Carolina. Speaking of which, here's his social media handles on Twitter. It's at Buzelis Matas, so last name, first name, And then for Instagram, you just flip it. Matas Buzelis there on the IG. And so that's all good. Now, we're going to talk more about what Matas brings to the table, recruiting evaluation, comps, all that good stuff. But first, I need to tell you all just a little bit about Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models in cars, it's impossible for your local auto parts store to have everything that they need for every car. And plus, you don't want to go up to the store and be like, hey, I need this thing for my car. I don't know what it is. I don't know what trim my car is. When I could just sit here at my computer, type it all into Rock Auto, and they're going to help me find it right away. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. That consistency, friends, is something that you can believe in. Rock Auto prices are reliably low, and they have all the parts, all the inventory that your car or truck could ever need. So go to Rock Auto right now and see all the parts that they have. While you're there, write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. That's rockauto.com. Well, I also want to encourage you, if you would, to check out Locked On Sports Today. This is kind of like just our daily rundown of everything going on in the world of sports. You can almost think of it as like the Locked On version of SportsCenter, which is like a daily digest of sports. So biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, the Locked On take of the day. It's available on Odyssey and YouTube, anywhere else that you get your podcast. So make sure to go check that out. All right, Pac, let's get right back going on this. Let's just evaluate our man Matas. Obviously, he's got a ton of strengths, or he wouldn't be essentially a top 5 recruit in this class and growing by the day. But when you look at him as a basketball coach, what are some of the strengths that you see?
Yeah, so, I mean, you talk about being 6'10", 175. He moves so well. I mean, he's got guard footwork. He's got guard speed, guard quickness. For a 6'10" guy, I mean, that's so rare just in and of itself. But then, you really look at his IQ and the way that he plays the game, the way he carries himself. Great court vision, great ball handling.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned earlier, I think you mentioned about his parents both played professionally. And I really wonder how much that has to do with it, because you can tell
Absolutely, yeah.
the kid is one of the smartest kids on the floor every time he steps out there to play. And you can just tell by the way he breaks defenses down, the way he just finds his teammates. He's elite at that. And then, you really look at some of his other strengths. He's a great floor spacer. He does a really good job of spacing the floor. He can knock down shots. But there's room for growth there. I mentioned earlier there's potential to be even better than what he is. But he's a good floor spacer already. He handles the ball well. He's got great vision. So he does a lot of things just really, really well.
Yeah, and with that floor spacing, it's not like you can get up on him, because he can, with the ball handling capability, obviously being 6'10", I mean, he's like dribbling up here. But even though he's got a high dribble, it's like, I mean, it's on a yo-yo for the guy. And so It's like you get up on him, he's by you. I don't care if you're a guard or a forward. He's got the ball handling. Mm-hmm. Like there was this play I watched in one of his highlights that just blew me away. It was like he was guarding out on the perimeter, got his hand down in the passing lane, stole the pass, led the break himself, dribbled behind his back in transition, finished through a defender with his left hand. Keep in mind he's right-handed. Like, I mean, gee whiz, what do you do with that?
Yeah, well, and that's one thing, when you look at high school, Matas is just talented enough. He can just put the ball in his right hand, get downhill and go score. He can put the ball in his left hand, get downhill and go score. But when you get to the next level, people are going to make you change direction. Like they're going to stop your first dribble.
Yes.
And you got to be able to change directions and still make something happen. And you see that a lot with Matas, like you just mentioned, like behind the back, go finish through contact with the opposite hand. And that's how you know his game will translate, because he can adjust and he can, you can take away a tendency, but he can burn you with his left hand just as good as he can his right. And I mean, that's good for guards. You talk about that in a 6'10" person. That's great. That's why we're so excited about this guy. Is his ability matched with his size is just, I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again, it's just rare. You just don't see it.
Which again has to be a testament to the training his parents have given him, that he can finish without and it's not just that he's finishing with his left hand, it looks just as smooth as his natural handedness with his right hand. So
yes, he's just smooth. Like he runs smooth, he dribbles smooth. It's impressive.
Yeah, I think back to Chet Holmgren this year, and shot blocking aside, there's some of the same things that he can do, but Chet just looks gangly when he's playing, and that's like a T-Rex or a raptor that just got born and can't figure out how to move all his arms and legs. Matas is, like you say, he's just cool. He's smooth. I love it. I love it. Well, what about the flip of that? What are some things that when you look at him as I can, as you said, there's obviously growth. What are some things that if you're game planning, you might try to exploit?
Yeah, well, he's got a great build. He's got the 6'10", body. He's only got the 175 frame. So I think the biggest thing that he could improve on is packing some mass onto that frame and packing some muscle on. And not even that, but to me, physicality is, you need the body for it, but it's also kind of a mindset. And I'd like to see a little bit more of that from him. So if you were asking me, hey, we're going to play Matas, I don't know that there's much that we can do to expose him other than the fact that, hey, we're going to be physical with him. We're going to make him earn everything. We're going to push on him. We're going to block out really tough, really physical. And I think, where you might be able to expose him, I guess, a little bit, if you will, is I think get some offensive rebounds just because of lack of physicality, especially when you're talking about playing in the ACC. This is not high school anymore. This is 6'10", 220 pounds, physical, strong, push you around. And so
put him in the post with Armando. He's getting shoved out of the way like a leaf.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's definitely where there's room for improvement.
Man. Yeah, that's good. Well, my goodness, when he's got this ability to score at every level, and he's not finessing it when he cuts back door, he's dunking with authority over. I mean, so it's not just I think when I think 6'10", but just 175, I'm like, oh yeah, he might go up and then get knocked down, but it's he's going up viciously.
Yeah,
I get why Gigi and Simeon are all in. I get why Hubert Davis is all in and wants to get him there. So, thinking of who he looks like, are there? I mean, because he's a little bit of an again, we said it about Simeon, but kind of a unicorn, a very unique player. So as we look at Carolina, I think it's kind of hard to see anybody because he is this new breed of basketball player that there just might not be anyone to compare him to in Carolina history.
Yeah, there's really not. The best I can do, I'm going to try to give you a comparison right here, but it's not a true comparison. So. And I'll explain it. The best thing I could think of is if you put 4 inches on Justin Jackson, let's make him taller. But Matas, in my opinion, is better, at least at this stage. That's hard to say because Justin's a national champion and made more 3-pointers than any player in a season in Carolina history. But I really believe overall Matas is a better player. But they have similarities, especially in their frame. They're long and they're lanky.
Yeah, spindly.
They have they have a knack for the ball on offense, and they find ways to score, even though it's a little bit unconventional sometimes. But so that reminds me. They kind of remind me of each other in that way. But I do think Matas is obviously he's taller, he's longer, he's more skilled at this stage than Justin was. But it is the best comparison I can come up with because he's not really like anybody we've ever had before.
Right. Absolutely. But I would assume since so much of this type of player is finding their way into the NBA, that it might be a little bit easier to find some similar comps at the professional level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And so when you look at that, who do you see flashes of in him?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, the easiest comparison is Kevin Durant. I mean, you talk about body frame and body type. That's they're the exact same, pretty much. They look alike, they play alike, they have the same skill sets to an extent. Obviously KD is one of the best players in the world, but Matas has the potential to turn into that. I mean, he really does. And so, I see that the most in him. But there's a little bit of flashes of Gordon Hayward in there, and I'm gonna give you a throwback right here.
Okay.
How about a little Tony Kukoc in there?
Ooh.
Little old school Bulls action right there.
Yeah,
but
and another European player. Yeah.
Yeah. So that may be some of that European coming through in him, like the foreigner that translates to the National Basketball Association. They do have their own, similarities because the way they develop over there. And so, I definitely see some tendencies there that remind me of Kukoc a little bit.
Man, that's super interesting. And curious to me is I heard, I think it was Mike Schmitz, the guy that always interrupts the ESPN college games that they take up a third of the screen with. But he was interviewing him earlier this month, where was up in Portland at one of the circuit things they were doing, and he asked him, he asked Matas, who do you like to watch? Who do you like to kind of, I don't think he said emulate, but really intrigues you. And you think about these guys like Durant, some of these point forward, no, he said Luka and LaMelo. He's using point guards because he, and I guess Luka would be almost build-wise more of a point forward, but just thinking about that passing and facilitating, it's clear it's not just something he does well, but wants to thrive on and pride himself on. And so that's super encouraging to me.
Absolutely. And that, now that you say that, I do see some LaMelo in his game.
Interesting.
The way that he breaks defenses down and finds his teammates, I see a little bit of that in there. So that's pretty interesting that you say that.
Because he's got a couple of inches on LaMelo, but LaMelo is a huge guard, and as would be Lonzo. But obviously, I think his skill set is better than Lonzo's would be. So, man, interesting stuff. Well, we got more to talk about with Matas Buzelis, just some interesting tidbits on him. But first, let me just tell you a little bit about Bet Online. Our partners at Bet Online continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs. We're almost to the finals. Pac, I want your pick for that in just a second here. MLB baseball scores, fights, and even NFL futures for the upcoming season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about all the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Pac, seriously, who's winning the NBA championship?
I don't see anybody beating the Golden State Warriors now.
Yeah, the way they're playing right now, I've been saying all season, Suns, but as soon as they were done, I think you're right.
Well, they space the floor so well. They guard really well. They have, who are you going to stop? You going to stop Stephen? Okay. Poole's doing his thing now, and Clay's doing his thing, and Draymond is obviously capable of being a really good player, just depending on if he can keep his emotions in check or not. But
dude, he's a mess.
They're just, but they just have so many pieces, and that really pains me because I'm a Celtics fan. I just love the way they play the game, but. I do that. The Heat Celtics series, that's pretty intriguing.
But they're just so banged up, both of them.
They both play such a physical brand of basketball.
That's true.
You play 82 games, and now you're in the Eastern Conference Finals. You're going to start to wear down at some point.
Yeah, and just to see Clay finally back and healthy and playing like a basketball fan, you just love to see that. So really cool. So let's get back to Matas Buzelis, just some more tidbits, other things that we love. One of the things that I thought was really intriguing and interesting timing from the coaching staff is that a couple weeks ago, Gigi committed, and then it was the very next day that Coach Davis went to visit Matas's parents. What do you think, Pac? I know that timeline, sure, it's probably coincidental, but how interesting that we're going after these big guys just right in a line together there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that that is coincidental. I like to think of Coach Davis as a pretty intentional guy, and I think he probably knew before we did that Gigi was coming, and I think that he probably set that up. And he said, "Hey, you know what? We're going to go get Gigi, and then we're going to parlay that straight into getting Matas down here, and we're going to at least we're going to shoot our shot." And
Yeah,
so,
yeah. My man is savvy.
yes, very much so. And he learned from Dean Smith. There's the old story about Dean Smith after the 1993 national championship went to the locker room, celebrated with the team, and immediately flew to Rasheed Wallace's house. He got there that night, like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning, and he said, "You're coming to Carolina." Well, Hubert's got a little bit of that in him. We saw that when he flew to Gigi's house, and when the team was in New Orleans for the Final Four, Hubert and Coach Lebo were at Gigi's house saying, "Hey, we want you in Carolina Blue and Argyle." And now they're doing the same thing with Matas. So
Yeah.
I don't know that I would think that it's pretty intentional, and I think that it was pretty savvy and pretty wise of him too.
Yeah, man, I love that. And yeah, I mean, he did that, went down to try to get Walker Kessler back. We saw Coach Williams do that, go out right after national championships and go after his main guys. And so, man, I love the trajectory of this and would love to come in later to the game than like Duke or Kentucky and just grab this dude and bring him to Carolina. And
Yes.
you talked, Pac, about Matas having room for growth and improvement. As skilled a player as he already is, as we've said, he is still just 11th in the ESPN rankings. Where, as you look at his game, do you see room for some of that improvement?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier he's got to put the weight on, got to get the physicality piece down pat. I think that's something that you learn over the course of time. I mean, you get better at that when you play better competition. And so, he's obviously playing top level competition at Brewster, but he'll be doing that as soon as he steps on the floor at Carolina. And that's what's cool about the roster that we're building is it is talented. So not only are we playing in the best conference in the country, we're practicing against each other every day, which forces you to get better. So that's something I think that'll come. But I also think he can space the floor now. He can become better at that. And then, there's 3 levels to scoring. He does all 3 really well. Obviously, he wouldn't be a top 10 player in the country if he didn't. But that second level, that mid-range area, I think there's room for growth there. So now, like we've talked about before, that's not as huge of a piece in today's game as it is as the getting to the rim or catch and shoot threes. So I don't know how important that is, but I do think it is definitely potential room for growth there in that mid-level scoring.
Nice. Now, one thing we always have to consider is roster fit. How, are there enough shots to go around? How does he fit in with the guards? So when you look at his skill set and what he brings, how does he fit in on this roster?
Yeah, I don't think there's a roster in the country that this guy wouldn't fit in on just because, man, he's so dang versatile. He just does it all. And we said the same thing about Simeon, and we said the same thing about Gigi. Like, I think it's pretty clear that Coach Davis is targeting a specific type of player, guys that are versatile. They do it all. And you mentioned one thing that I thought was interesting. Is there enough shots to go around? Here's the cool thing about these guys. I don't think they care about that. And I think that's why they're a good fit at North Carolina. Matas has mentioned multiple times that he's trying to emulate his game after guys that get their teammates involved. Yeah. We listened to Simeon's dad come on last week, and what was he talking about? How his son could do things besides scoring to win games. We know how GG affects the game, and so that's the type of player that comes to play at North Carolina. They're playing for the NC. They're not playing for the name on the back of their jersey, and I think that's what makes this class potentially so special. Is they're skilled, but they're not about themselves. They're about something bigger than themselves, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Boy, I love that. That's so encouraging. So, Pac, closing thought here. When you look at Matas, what is it like that most excites you about what he can do or what he brings to the table?
That's so tough because I think the defensive mind in me thinks the dude could wreak havoc. Like, because
Man,
we mentioned and it's not something we've really talked about with his game yet, but
yeah,
he's got good foot speed enough that offensively he can blow by guards. He can post up guards. He can blow by posts. He can do a little bit of all of that. He can do the same thing defensively. He can guard in the post because he's got the 7'2", 7'3" wingspan and the 6'10" height. He can guard the perimeter because he has good foot speed. He has good length. And so that really excites me. I mean, you just look at that. Like, Gigi can switch. Simeon can switch. Matas can switch. There's so much versatility potentially coming in that is very exciting. And then, you look at what he can do on the offensive end. There's too many things to be excited about.
yeah. Yeah, there's no way to pin it down. Well, folks, it's great for Pac and I to be able to talk about Matas and everything he could potentially bring to the table if he does indeed come to Chapel Hill. Really, there's no leanings, it seems, yet. There's no crystal balls. It's just all we can go on right now is speculation and rumor. And when players like Gigi and Simeon are chasing after you, it's got to be hard to turn down, especially seeing what just happened this past season. And I know Duke is going to have a lot of pull. They've got a great 23 class as well already coming in. And so should be a fun recruiting battle to keep tabs on. And we will certainly do that up until he makes a commitment. Obviously, if he commits to Carolina, we're going to talk more about it. But if not, we're done. We ain't going to talk about you no more. But as always, Pac Kilby, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate all your thoughts and insights and wisdom.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Man, and you know what? We successfully navigated this entire episode without calling you the Carolina Coach K.
Yes,
so,
we did.
Folks out there, you're welcome. We'll keep that going. Again, we heard you loud and clear, and over and done. Speaking of over and done, that's it for today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels. Coming up tomorrow, John Garcia Jr. joins me to talk about a class of recruits that came in to Chapel Hill over the weekend for football, one of whom went ahead and committed, and that's great news. So we're going to talk about all of that tomorrow. Thank you so much for making Locked on Tar Heels your first listen or your first watch every single day. Again, if you would, please go and subscribe wherever it is that you get podcasts. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked on Heels. You can go follow Coach Pac Kilby at Coach_K23. And you can follow me at Isaac Schade, ISAACSCHADE. All these fun European names. Schade is German. It means what a pity. So there you go, everybody out there. Now, let us encourage you to make Locked On NBA Big Board your second listen of the day. Rafael Barlow and the whole crew give fans an in-depth look into the biggest prospects, as well as player rankings, draft boards, all of that. You can go and listen to that. Follow Locked On NBA Big Boards every day on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever it is that you get podcasts. Thanks so much for spending part of your Wednesday hanging out with us, just a bunch of goobers, as we talk about Matas Buzelis and what a great asset he could be to North Carolina coming in the fall of 2023. Keep your eyes and ears open. But as for today, let us remind you that it is always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Until tomorrow, peace!